I'm not asking the court to ignore the response of the parent. We are at a sentencing, and we are not asking, at the end of the day, the defense also asked for a prison sentence. So we are at the phase of guilt, right? So the court, of course, I'm asking for a downward departure from 6 years. I'm not asking the court to dismiss the charges or on a stand your ground motion, right?
No, and I understand, you're doing your job, and I'm going to give you all the latitude that
No,
I can give you to make your points.
But I think that that is an important distinction, that this is not condoning behavior. It's simply seeing that there are factors that allow a court to depart. That's not saying dismiss the charges, make them misdemeanor. I don't have a legal basis to do that, but we are still asking for, in our case, a prison sentence. Another thing that I will say, Judge, is I understand, I believe that there were other, I think there has been a real mischaracterization of some of the behavior, and the defense was limited in its ability to present some of the early behaviors, and we were not permitted to present any of the post-removal conduct or access those records. So I understand the court's position, but there is no dispute based on both the testimony of the state's expert and the defense expert that there is a true issue here of reactive attachment disorder.
So when you've raised that argument with me a couple times now, and the first thought I always have when I hear that, especially in what governed my ruling and not allowing it, because if I allowed it, then I'm opening the door up to conduct of the victim that may be attributable to the injury and harm that he suffered as a result of the defendant's conduct. And so the defendant would benefit by harming his son because of the psychological impact of being put in the room, and then use that very harm as evidence as to why I'm not to be found guilty or I'm to have my sentence reduced. That's the problem I've always had with any post separation evidence. Let me help you out here, because I don't think you're going to get there on either point one or point two. I think your better argument on a downward departure is really what's referred to as the catch-all provision, and that's under 921.026 that states that I can consider the enumerated list in the downward departure grounds, but I'm not limited to them. I don't think you're going to convince me that anything that I can look to with respect to Ronan Ferriter's RF's conduct is going to put me in a position where I'm going to find that's a sufficient basis to mitigate or downward depart on the sentence. And I don't think you're going to get there on restitution either under the facts and circumstances of this case. But I get it that, at least from Mr. Ferriter's standpoint, that he was dealing with what he thought. I'm not even concluding that he was actually dealing with a real problem child or not. What I am concluding is that he at least thought he was dealing with a problem child, and what was his reaction to that. And so that's where I think you should focus with your argument for me, so I can put some clarity as to whether, because I don't think you're going to get there under the enumerated grounds. So let's look at the catch-all. Is there some unique aspect of this case under the catch-all that would give me a legal basis to, one, find that there's a legal basis for downward departure, and then get to the question of whether, if there is a legal basis, I should exercise my discretion to downward depart. So trying to focus you on what's really going to get me to where I need to be if I were to downward depart. So focus on that aspect, the catch-all provision, because I think that's your best shot of convincing me.
So I think, Judge, what's difficult about giving the court a legal basis under the catch-all provision is that, by definition, it is the catch-all provision. I'll start with this. I think, and this goes sort of into sentencing in general, but there is some case law that the court can consider the totality of the circumstances. None of these children live with Mr. Ferriter anymore. He has some contact with the youngest, who is 2 to 3 years old. As the court knows, there's no allegations of abuse as it relates to the other children, just to RF. He is now in a position where he has no ability to contact his elder 3 children unless it is up to them. He does not live with them. He has gone from someone who had a job, lived in a home with his wife, had 4 kids, to all of that being taken away. Perhaps rightly so in the court's eyes. He has already, I think in many ways, at least as a parent, been punished by the dependency courts in the way in which the children, not the way in which they were removed, but in that particular, he no longer has his kids. And I think that that is some punishment in and of itself. And I think it also serves a purpose in the sense that if the court's concern is the safety of those children, that should not be a concern for the court, because it's really up to the discretion of the kids as to whether or not they wish to speak with their father. Dr. Rappa stated in her letter to the court that she did evaluate Tim Ferriter, that he's shown remorse. I think that the court saw that in his statement, that a really grave.
Well, did I see remorse in his statement? You're talking about the statement he gave this today, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
So did I see remorse? I heard him apologize and say he was sorry to his children for putting them in this position, but I don't think I heard one single time him saying he was sorry for how he treated RF.
I think he did, because it was in front of me and I was able to.
I mean, if he did, he must have glossed over it, because I didn't receive it as such, that he was acknowledging that his conduct and treatment of RF was wrong. He was certainly, sorry for having caused his children the harm and trauma that they're feeling, and I get that. This is a tragedy, a family tragedy, which is an understatement, because what appeared to be a well-functioning family has imploded and been blown up, probably never to be put back together again. I get that, but I didn't hear the remorse that I think, if that's what you're telling me I was supposed to hear. I don't know that I actually heard that from the statement. And if I missed something in the statement, please let me know what I missed, so I can give Mr. Ferriter the benefit of all reasonable inferences here.